I loved His Majesty's Dragon. I loved the story. I loved Temeraire, possible new favorite dragon ever. But before I go any farther, spoiler warning, this is the video where I will get into all the spoilers. So if you want to avoid spoilers, I do have a spoiler-free review for this book that you can watch instead. So this book takes place during the Napoleonic Wars, and it's mostly historical fiction with dragons. There really weren't any other fantasy elements. So it is a fantasy book, but there's not magic. There's not some sort of weird mystical bond between the writers and the dragons like in some Dragon Rider books. And something that I really appreciated, and I will probably come to appreciate more the older I get, is that the main character is an adult already. So it's not a coming of age, it's not a boy finds a dragon egg. You're following an already grown man who has to shift and change his life journey, which is really hard for him. Okay, but I'll try to go a little more in order. So it started out with a fight, a naval battle. A British ship is capturing a French ship. There's blood on the decks, it's very serious. And so the very first page I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. Luckily I kept going. One of the things that makes this capture so important for Captain Lawrence's crew is that they are not only getting a French ship, that ship had a dragon egg, and those are so valuable. But then when they have their ship's doctor come look at it and find out that it's going to hatch before they get home, Captain Lawrence knows that they are going to have to pick someone to harness this freshly hatched dragon. And because of the type of man that he is, he's not asking his officers to do anything that he's not willing to do himself. So they all draw lots. And asking them to do this, he knows that he is asking them to change their life, to give up everything they had hoped for in their life before this. Because it's all naval officers drawing lots, they all had aspirations. They all had a plan to work their way up through the Navy, maybe gain a captaincy of a ship. All these men already have lives. They have career paths. And harnessing a dragon and bonding that dragon means that they have to completely give up everything else they ever cared about, except for the dragon. So he's asking a lot of them. And everyone who didn't draw the short straw is secretly very relieved. They don't want to be a dragon rider. They want to be a sailor. That's why they're at sea. And when the little freshly hatched dragon completely ignores the guy who drew the lot to try to harness him and turns to Captain Lawrence, he just accepts it as part of his duty because that's the kind of guy he is. And I will say, it was really nice to have a main character that I could respect as a person. That's something I was thinking about through here. He is a man of high morals. He likes to make the right choice. He has a little bit of a temper, so I didn't like that part that much. And he did spend some time mourning his old life. He had already made it to captain. He had already spent time working his way up. He has his dream job already. And the next thing he's thinking about in life is the woman that he'd like to go back and offer marriage to. Except now he just has to say goodbye to even the possibility. He's feeling sad. He doesn't seem overly resentful of Temeraire, but it's not what he chose. He didn't desire to go become a part of the Air Corps. He didn't pursue a career in dragon captaincy. It's not what he wanted, and just like he had to harness Temeraire, it's like he himself has now been harnessed with this responsibility. And the first part of this, part one, was kind of like its own little novella. I felt like I got a full emotional arc through this part because this first part is where Captain Lawrence and Temeraire really bond with each other. And so far Captain Lawrence is like doing his duty. He knows he's going to have to go train to be part of the Air Corps. He's going to have to learn aerial battle tactics. This is his job now. And he's not really noticing how his relationship is growing with Temeraire until that one moment where they're on a walk and they're kind of joking about treasure. I don't know if I can remember exactly what they said to each other, but Lawrence is saying like, He'll never be a rich man, so he can never provide the hoards of treasure that dragons in stories traditionally like to lie upon. And Temeraire is just like, treasure might have been nice, but I'd rather have you than all this treasure. And that catches Captain Lawrence up, and he's like, wow, I never thought it was like that. And that's like a huge step in their relationship. He's not resenting Temeraire anymore. Now he's like, this is a good relationship. And I love how cute their relationship is. He's reading books to Temeraire. They're having like deep philosophical conversations with each other. It's like the companionship of his dragon is more than he could have dreamed it would be. At first he was looking at Temeraire as just a duty and a nuisance, and now it's actually like spending time with him is something he looks forward to every day. And oh man, the point where the Air Corps comes to send in someone who's actually been trained to take Temeraire from Captain Lawrence, that was pretty emotional. At that point, Lawrence does not want to give up Temeraire. And they tell him that we're not even going to let you say goodbye. It's better if it's just a clean break. And Lawrence goes back and he's like, this should be good. This should make me happy. I have the chance to get rid of the thing that was saddled upon me to go back to my true love, the sea. And he realizes that that doesn't make him happy anymore. It might after a while, but now that he has Temeraire, he wants to keep him. And so the other naval officers who are like, oh, it really dodged a bullet there. Lawrence doesn't feel like he dodged a bullet. He feels sad. And then the end of this part that felt so emotional to me was when Captain Lawrence gets back to Temeraire. I'm feeling emotional thinking about it again. Temeraire demonstrates how much he really cares about Lawrence, this human that he chose, by saying that if it's really your ship you want instead of me, I will let you go and I'll take this other rider. When I read that, I was sitting on the couch with my husband and I just looked up and I had tears in my eyes. That was the point in the book where I was like, this is my new favorite dragon. I love Temeraire. He is the best. And then, so poetically, Lawrence gets to say back to Temeraire what Temeraire had said to him before. I would rather have you than any ship in the Navy. And that's the end of part one. And I was like, I almost didn't feel like I needed to read the rest because that first part was so good. It was just the emotional journey that I needed. I don't know, so good. I almost forgot until I looked at this. Lawrence calls Temeraire my dear. He calls his dragon dear, and it's so cute. I love it. I love that. Okay, I'm not going to talk quite as long about all the rest. Some things that stood out to me. I love that Temeraire is like a special dragon. He's not just another of the kind that Britain already has a whole bunch of. He's this new special thing. And Temeraire kind of struggles with that because he's the only one like himself. There's no one else like him. He really understands and feels that he stands out. And he would kind of like to be able to fit in a little more. Sometimes that being special that you think should make you feel good about yourself makes you feel a little lonely. And Lawrence is having to just relearn how to be a military man. I kind of love how he's still a captain because he's a captain of his dragon and his dragon is like his ship. So instead of airplanes, they have dragons and he has his own crew. I really like how all that was handled, but it is not the same as captaining a ship. The Air Corps standards are very different. Captain Lawrence ran a very tight ship. Super strict discipline, very strict behavior was expected of his sailors. He expected a certain amount of tidiness. And all of that is just thrown on its head. They do things very different than in the Navy, and that takes a lot of getting used to. And the whole thing with, what's his name? It's been a couple weeks since I read this, so now I don't remember. The one smaller dragon, Levitas. That's enough to break your heart. The good little dragon whose rider neglects him. His rider doesn't care about him. He only gets a dragon because of his name, not because he actually makes a good dragon rider or a good captain. I hated that part. I hated reading about it. And if there was going to be a character death in the book, You kind of hope it's the writer that's doing the neglecting, not the cute little dragon that's been neglected. Hated that. Hated it. I definitely agree that I think it's Granby, the one who's been like secretly taking care of Levitus behind his writer's back, is the one who gets to be sent off to this new egg that's about to hatch, because he does deserve it. It's interesting, in a lot of dragon stories, the dragons are very fierce and they like to fight. They feel like it's just their natural state is to be a fierce predator. But in this one, Temeraire is not really into that. And to be fair, it's not the type of dragon he was bred to be. He could take the war or leave it. He doesn't really care about it. He would fight for what's right as long as he believes in it, or he would fight with Lawrence if it's a cause that Lawrence believes in. But Temeraire himself doesn't feel super passionate about it. And there's a point where he's talking to Lawrence and like, I wish we could just go back to sea like it was at first. The simple life, flying over the ocean with Lawrence, fishing for his dinner. Temeraire feels nostalgic for that time in their life. So almost everything about this, from the Jane Austen flavored writing style to the sweet, sweet relationship building between the dragon and his writer, the setting, the character arcs, this might be one of my favorite books of the year. Thank you to my patrons for your support. My Patreon link and my Instagram link are in the description. I hope you're enjoying whatever you're reading right now, and happy reading. Bye.